The salt air of Camden, Maine, clung to my skin as I stood in the kitchen of the Cape Cod house on Bayview Street, the one I'd poured my heart and savings into. I'm Elsa Miller, a 35-year-old nurse who's spent the last decade stitching together lives in the ICU at Penn Bay Medical Center. Every extra shift, every skipped vacation, every penny I saved was for a dream, a seaside cottage with a garden where I could plant violets and watch the tides roll in. But that dream was crumbling in front of me, and the weight of it made my chest ache. The housewarming party was supposed to be a celebration. I'd spent $200,000, my entire life savings, to save my parents, Linda and Tom, from losing their old place to foreclosure. The agreement was simple. The deed would be in my name since I'd paid the down payment. I'd imagined this house, with its white clapboard siding and wide front porch, as a place for family gatherings, maybe even a home for me one day. But as my mother waved the deed in my face, her words cut deeper than any scalpel I'd ever seen in the hospital. "Elsa, don't be ridiculous," she said, her voice sharp over the chatter of relatives and the clink of wine glasses. "Daniel needs this more than you. He's got a wife and a baby on the way. What do you have? Just yourself." Her words landed like a slap, stealing the air from my lungs. I gripped the edge of the granite countertop, the one I'd chosen with the realtor, picturing holiday dinners here. My stepbrother, Daniel, leaned against the fridge, his smug grin as familiar as it was infuriating. At 40, he'd never contributed a dime to our parents, too busy chasing failed dreams, a lobster shack that went bust, a craft brewery that never brewed a single batch. Yet here he was, the golden child, handed my life's work because he'd married and had a kid on the way. Tom, my stepfather, chimed in, his eyes fixed on the hardwood floor. "We've filed the paperwork, Elsa. The house is Daniel's now. You should be proud. You're helping your brother start his family." Proud? The word tasted bitter. I'd worked double shifts, missed birthdays, let relationships slip away, all to save that money. I looked around the room. My Aunt Laura, who'd practically raised me during summers when Mom was too busy doting on Daniel, stood in the corner, her face tight with disbelief. My best friend, Sophie, clutched her glass so tightly I thought it might crack. The rest of the guests' cousins, neighbors, shifted awkwardly, their whispers filling the air like static. "This isn't right," I said, my voice trembling with a mix of hurt and fury. "That money was everything I had. We had an agreement." "Oh, Elsa, stop being so dramatic," Mom sighed, rolling her eyes. "You're a nurse. You'll save it again. Daniel needs a stable home for his baby. You don't have anyone to provide for." Something inside me broke, not just from the betrayal, but from years of being the reliable one, the one who sacrificed while Daniel got new cars and second chances. I'd grown up watching my parents refinance their house to fund his failures, never complaining even as their retirement dwindled. But this was theft. As Daniel paraded around, talking about his house, I knew this wasn't the end. They'd pushed me too far, and I wasn't the quiet, accommodating Elsa they expected anymore. Growing up in Camden, I learned early that I was different in my family's eyes. When my dad died in a fishing accident, I was 8, and the world felt like it tilted off its axis. Mom remarried Tom within a year, and Daniel stormed into our lives like a nor'easter. At 10, he was all charm and chaos, instantly becoming the sun my parents orbited. I was the moon, steady, quiet, always there but rarely noticed. While Daniel got new bikes and later a pickup truck for his 16th birthday, I worked weekends at the local pharmacy, saving for college. I put myself through nursing school, juggling night shifts as a CNA and student loans that still haunt my bank account. Mom called me responsible, but it felt like a polite way of saying invisible. Daniel, meanwhile, was the dreamer, his lobster shack, his brewery, his tech startup, all failures my parents bailed out with their savings. I watched them refinance their house 3 times, saying nothing as their future slipped away. 6 months ago, when Mom called me in tears, saying they faced foreclosure, I didn't hesitate. I'd been saving for my own cottage, picturing a small place by the harbor where I could plant a garden and breathe. Instead, I offered my $200,000, thinking it might finally show them my worth. We spent weeks touring houses, settling on the Cape Cod on Bayview Street. I fell in love with its wraparound porch and the way the sea breeze drifted through the windows. "You're a blessing, Elsa," Mom said, hugging me tightly. "We'll make this work as a family." I believed her, desperate to feel like I belonged. But there were signs I ignored. The hushed phone calls with Daniel. The meetings with their lawyer I wasn't invited to. The way they stalled on finalizing the paperwork. Sophie warned me over coffee at the diner on Main Street. "Elsa, get it in writing," she said, her eyes serious. "I don't trust them to do right by you." I brushed it off, defending them. What kind of family would steal from their own daughter? I couldn't imagine it, not then. But as I stood in that kitchen, the memory of Sophie's warning burned. I'd been naive, and now my dream was slipping through my fingers like sand on Camden's shore. The housewarming party blurred around me, laughter and clinking glasses fading into a dull roar. I stood frozen in the kitchen, staring at the fluffy towels I'd bought for the bathrooms, the cheerful throw pillows on the couch, the welcome mat by the door that read "Home Sweet Home." Each item mocked me, a reminder of the future I'd imagined in this house. My savings, years of missed vacations, late nights in the ICU, relationships I let fade had built this place, and now it belonged to Daniel. I wanted to scream, to throw the deed back in Mom's face, but my legs felt like lead. Guests milled about, offering awkward smiles or avoiding my gaze. Laura, my aunt, stood by the window, shaking her head, her lips pressed tight. Sophie's hand brushed mine, a silent anchor in the storm. "This isn't right," I whispered, my voice cracking. "They can't do this." As Daniel strutted through the living room, talking loudly about repainting the walls, I noticed a folder on top of the fridge, Mom's usual spot for important papers. My heart pounded as I slipped it into my bag while everyone was distracted. Outside on the porch, the cool Maine air hit my face, and I pulled out the papers with trembling hands. There it was, the agreement I'd signed, stating the house would be in my name. Then I found something else, a letter from their lawyer, dated 2 weeks ago, warning that transferring the deed without my consent could be fraud. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom, *stop sulking outside. Come back in and be happy for Daniel, the words ignited something fierce in me. This wasn't just about the money, it was about years of being pushed aside, of giving everything and getting nothing. I texted Sophie's brother, Mark, a real estate attorney, *are you free tomorrow? I need legal help. His reply was instant. Sophie told me. 9 a.m. at my office. Bring everything, I stepped back inside, my resolve hardening. Mom and Tom were laughing with Daniel, planning his future in my house. They didn't see the shift in me, the spark of defiance. I wasn't just the reliable daughter anymore. They'd taken my savings, my trust, my dream, but they wouldn't take my fight. The next morning, I sat in Mark Carter's office in Portland, clutching a coffee cup to steady my nerves. The drive from Camden had been a blur, the coastal road winding past lighthouses and lobster boats, but all I could see was that lawyer's letter, the word fraud burning in my mind. Mark, Sophie's brother, spread the documents across his desk, his brow furrowed as he read. "Elsa, this is a mess," he said, holding up the agreement I'd signed. "You paid the down payment, and this clearly states the house was to be in your name. The deed transfer to Daniel? It's not just shady, it's illegal. And this letter from their lawyer proves they knew it." He tapped another page. "There's evidence of forged signatures here. Your name's on documents you never signed." My stomach churned. Forgery. Fraud. The words felt too big, too ugly, for my family. I'd spent my life smoothing things over, taking extra shifts to help them, staying quiet when they favored Daniel. But this? What can I do? I asked, my voice small but steady. Mark leaned forward, his eyes kind but firm. "We file an emergency injunction to stop any changes to the property, renovations, sales, anything. Then we sue to void the transfer. With this evidence, we can push for criminal charges if they don't comply. They stole $200,000 from you, Elsa. That's grand theft. Criminal charges." The thought made my heart race. I pictured Mom's tearful face, Tom's slumped shoulders, Daniel's smug grin fading. I didn't want them in jail, but I couldn't let them walk away either. I just want my house back, I said. And I want them to know they can't do this to me. Mark nodded, already typing. We'll start with the injunction. They'll be served by tomorrow. This is your line in the sand, Elsa. You're not the pushover they think you are. Driving back to Camden, I felt a strange calm. The fear was still there, but so was something new resolve. For the first time, I wasn't sacrificing myself for them. I was fighting for me. The next morning, chaos greeted me before my coffee had cooled. Sophie called as I was getting ready for my ICU shift, her voice urgent. Elsa, your mom and Daniel are outside your apartment. They're making a scene. I peered out my window, and there they were, Mom banging on the building's door, Daniel pacing the sidewalk, his face red with anger. I took a deep breath and went downstairs, the folder of documents tucked under my arm. The crisp Maine air did little to cool the heat rising in my chest. You have to stop this, Mom shouted as I stepped outside. This lawsuit will tear our family apart. That's rich, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. You didn't care about family when you stole my life savings. I held up the folder. I have the agreement we signed. And the lawyer's letter warning you this was fraud. Want to talk about the forged signatures too? The color drained from Daniel's face. Mom grabbed my arm, her voice dropping to a whisper. Elsa, we can work this out as a family. No lawyers. I gently pulled away. We stopped being a family when you decided my $200,000 meant nothing. The DA has copies of everything. Reverse the deed, or this gets worse. You'd send your own mother to jail? Mom gasped, tears welling up. Those tears used to unravel me, but not today. You might send yourself there, I said. I'm just standing up for myself. Daniel's phone rang. His wife, Claire, her voice frantic through the speaker. The police are at our house, asking about the deed. They hurried off, panic trailing them like a storm cloud. Sophie, who'd been watching from her car, ran over and hugged me. I've never seen you like that, she said, grinning. You were fierce. I've never had proof before, I replied, my heart still racing. Just my word against theirs. Not anymore. For the first time, I felt the ground solid beneath me, not slipping away. My phone buzzed relentlessly as I worked my evening shift at Penn Bay, tending to patients in the ICU. Daniel had called 9 times, Mom 13, their texts a mix of anger and desperation. You're tearing us apart, Elsa. Stop this nonsense. I silenced my phone, focusing on the steady beep of monitors. Let them panic. They'd made me feel small for years. Now it was their turn. Mark called later, his voice steady. They've been served the injunction. No changes to the house can happen now. I dug deeper. There's more evidence of forgery. Bank statements show your signature on transfer documents you never saw. The DA's office is interested. This could go criminal fast. My heart thudded. I wanted justice, but the idea of Mom in handcuffs twisted my gut. She'd manipulated me, sure, but she was still the woman who'd read me bedtime stories, even if she stopped when Daniel arrived. Do we have to go that far? I asked, my voice catching. They're counting on you backing down, Mark said. They stole from you, Elsa. $200,000. They forged your name. You decide how far to push, but I'm with you. I stared out the hospital window, the harbor lights twinkling in the distance. Camden's beauty usually soothed me, but tonight it felt like a challenge to be as strong as the rocky coast. Keep going, I said finally. I want the house back, and I want them to face what they did. Mark was already moving. The lawyer they used is panicking too. He knows he's implicated. They'll try to settle soon. Stay strong. I hung up, feeling the weight of my choice. Guilt lingered, but so did a fire I hadn't known I had. My family thought I'd cave, like always. They were wrong. 2 weeks later, I sat in Mark's office, the air thick with tension. Mom, Tom, and Daniel sat across from me, their faces a mix of defeat and resentment. The notary placed a stack of papers on the table, the new deed among them. My family had caved. The house was being transferred back to me, along with $60,000 in damages and my legal fees covered. Most importantly, they were signing a notarized statement admitting their attempt to defraud me. Mom's eyes were red from crying, Tom stared at the floor, and Daniel's jaw was tight, his usual swagger gone. Claire, his wife, had left him after discovering he'd hidden their own financial troubles, debts from his latest failed venture. The house theft was just one piece of his mess. "Sign here," the notary said, pointing to the final page. One by one, they did. When it was my turn, my hand was steady, the pen gliding across the paper. I felt no triumph, only a quiet relief. The house was mine again, but the cost was a family fractured beyond repair. "You've ruined everything," Daniel muttered as he stood, his voice low. "No," I said, meeting his eyes. "You did that when you stole from me. I just fixed it." Mom reached for my hand as they left, but I stepped back. Her tears didn't move me anymore. Mark handed me the deed, a small smile on his face. "Congratulations, Elsa. It's yours." I nodded, clutching the papers. The Cape Cod house was mine, but it no longer felt like home. It was a symbol of their betrayal, a weight I didn't want to carry. As I drove back to Camden, the harbor glowing under a pink sunset, I knew what I had to do next. This wasn't the end, it was a new beginning. The decision came easily, like the tide pulling back from Camden's shore. I didn't want the house on Bayview Street, not anymore. Every window, every floorboard, reminded me of their betrayal. So, I called my realtor and listed it. Within days, a developer offered well above market value, planning to turn the property into upscale condos. The profit, combined with the settlement, was enough to change everything. I signed the sale papers on a crisp morning, the harbor sparkling beyond the realtor's office. My family had spread rumors, telling relatives I'd overreacted to a misunderstanding. They thought I'd let them stay in the house, clinging to their old control. They didn't know about the sale until it was done. "They'll lose it when they find out," Sophie said, laughing over coffee at our favorite Camden cafe. "They thought you'd cave." "That's why I did it," I replied, stirring my latte. "They need to know they don't own me." With the money, I bought my dream, a small seaside cottage just outside Camden, with a wraparound porch and a yard perfect for gardening. The first night, I stood on the porch, the scent of salt and pine wrapping around me. This was mine, earned through my fight. I pictured violets blooming in neat rows, tomatoes ripening on the vine. My family's shadow no longer loomed here. I was free. My cottage became my sanctuary. I painted the walls soft blues and greens, colors that echoed the Maine coast and soothed my soul. The garden took shape, violets, tomatoes, cucumbers, each seed a promise of something new. Sophie helped me move in, joking that my green thumb was my superpower. Laura visited often, bringing her famous blueberry pie and stories from her bookstore. At work, things shifted too. I applied for and got a promotion to charge nurse, with better hours and a raise that felt like a reward for my courage. My colleagues noticed the change. I smiled more, spoke up in meetings, stopped taking every holiday shift just because I had no one to go home to. I'd found a family, not in blood, but in choice. Sophie, Laura, new neighbors who invited me to barbecues, a book club where we debated novels over wine. My biological family still reached out, their messages a mix of guilt and demands. Mom texted about Daniel's struggles, asking for rent money. I replied calmly, "I'm not in a position to help," and meant it. The words were my shield, protecting the life I was building. One evening, as I planned my garden on the porch, Mom's number flashed on my phone. I declined the call, feeling no guilt, only peace. I'd cleared the weeds from my life, and now I was ready to grow. A year after I stood up to my family, I sit on my cottage porch, watching fireflies dance above my garden. The violets are blooming, their purple petals vibrant against the green. Tomatoes hang heavy on the vine, and I've started donating extras to Camden's food bank. My life feels like the garden, carefully tended, thriving mine. My career has soared. As nursing supervisor, I mentor new nurses, sharing not just medical skills but lessons in courage. One thanked me recently, saying my story gave her the strength to leave a toxic relationship. "If you could face your family," she said, "I can face one person." Her words warmed me, a reminder that my fight rippled outward. Mom, Tom, and Daniel struggle. Daniel's divorced now, working a retail job, living with my parents in a modest rental. I don't wish them harm, but their choices aren't my burden anymore. Laura tells me Mom still spins tales of my selfishness, but the truth has spread. That notarized statement I made them sign? It shifted the narrative. I'm no longer the ungrateful daughter, but the nurse who fought for what was hers. Sometimes, I look at an old photo from the housewarming party, their smug faces frozen in time. I don't feel anger anymore, just gratitude. Their betrayal pushed me to become someone stronger, someone who chooses herself. Claire brings my nephew to the cottage sometimes, saying the garden calms him. It calms me too. Last night, I hosted a dinner for Sophie, Laura, and friends from work. We sat on the porch, laughing under the stars, wine glasses clinking. To boundaries, Sophie toasted, her eyes twinkling. To growth, I added, thinking of my garden, my career, my heart. This is family, chosen, respectful, real. To everyone who's followed my journey, thank you. You've walked with me through betrayal, battles, and breakthroughs. If my story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Keep planting your own seeds of courage, and I'll meet you on the other side, where every bloom tells a story of resilience and new beginnings.